In 1698, a ghost was brought to the Bastille. A prisoner whose face no one was allowed to see and whose name was never spoken. He lived in relative comfort, yet was condemned to total anonymity, forever hidden behind a mask. For over 300 years, his story has been spun into a grand romance of a king's secret twin. But what if the truth is even stranger than the fiction? So who the real man in the Iron Mask? For most of us, the story of the man in the Iron Mask is a tale of palace intrigue, desperate love, and a tragic hero locked away to protect a royal secret. This is the version that the great French author Alexandre Dumas basically burned into our collective imagination. In his 1847 novel, Dumas spun a gripping narrative where the prisoner was Philippe, the identical twin brother of King Louis XIV. In this swashbuckling adventure, the three musketeers discover the twin and try to swap him with the cruel king. It's a magnificent story, a fight for justice that ends in tragedy when the plot fails, and the heroic twin is imprisoned for life, his face hidden behind an iron mask to conceal his royal blood. This version of the story was so powerful, it's been adapted for the big screen again and again, from a silent film in 1929 to the star-studded 1998 blockbuster with Leonardo DiCaprio. This is the version we all know and love. It's a perfect legend, but that's all it is. That historical breadcrumb trail begins not with Dumas, but with another giant of French literature, the philosopher Voltaire. After being imprisoned in the Bastille himself in the early 18th century, Voltaire heard the rumors about the mysterious prisoner who had died there years before. He was the first to popularize the theory that the prisoner was someone important, maybe even an older illegitimate brother of Louis XIV. Voltaire, a fierce critic of the monarchy, knew a powerful story when he heard one, and sharpened prison gossip into a political weapon. He also gave the legend its most iconic and inaccurate detail, the idea that the mask was made of iron, and with that, the legend was born. But what are the actual facts? When we peel back the layers of legend, the first thing to go is the famous mask. It almost certainly wasn't iron. The prisoner did wear a mask, but historical records, like notes from his jailer, say it was made of black velvet cloth. He likely only wore it when being moved between prisons or during the rare times he might be seen by outsiders. The iron detail was a dramatic flair added by Voltaire that made the story sound way more brutal. So, if there was no iron mask, was there still a prisoner? Oh, absolutely. The earliest surviving records are from a letter written in 1669 by King Louis XIV minister to the governor of Pignerol prison. The letter announced the arrival of a prisoner identified as Eustache Dogger. The instructions for his imprisonment were chillingly strict. His cell needed multiple doors to stop anyone from listening in. The governor could only see him once a day to bring food, and if the prisoner ever spoke about anything other than his immediate needs, he was to be killed on the spot. This level of secrecy is what lit the fuse of speculation. For 34 years, this man was shuttled between prisons, following his jailer, Benim de Saint-Mars, from Pignerol to the island of Sainte Marguerite, and finally to the Bastille in Paris in 1698. Despite the extreme security, he wasn't treated like a common criminal. He had comfortable lodging and was treated with respect, which only fed the rumors of high birth. The prisoner died in the Bastille on November 19, 1703, and was buried the next day. The name on his burial certificate was recorded as Marchioli, just to add another layer of confusion to the mystery. With these facts, the royal twin theory starts to crumble. Historians have pretty much debunked it for a few key reasons. First, a royal birth, especially a twin, would have been a massive public event with dozens of witnesses precisely to prevent succession shenanigans. Smuggling a whole twin out of the palace unnoticed, highly unlikely. Plus, 17th century court protocol was incredibly rigid. The idea that a man of royal blood would be forced to serve as a valet to another prisoner, which records show Dogger did for a time, is unthinkable. The story of a hidden king is a great movie plot, but the evidence just isn't there. So if he wasn't a king, who was he? Once you toss out the romantic theories, historians are left with a few plausible, if less exciting, candidates. For a while, some thought the prisoner was an Italian diplomat named Ercole Mattioli, who double-crossed King Louis XIV. His name is suspiciously close to the Marchioli on the burial record. However, most researchers now believe Mattioli died years earlier in a different prison. This brings us back to the name from the arrest warrant, Eustache Dogger. For a long time, everyone assumed it was a fake name, but what if it wasn't? What if he was just Eustache Dogger? While the man's true identity is still not universally settled, the strongest theory points to him being exactly that. Research by historian Paul Sannino suggests that the motive for all the secrecy wasn't about royal blood, but something much more relatable: money. According to Sannino's extensive research, Eustache Dogger was a valet to the treasurer of Cardinal Mazarin, the hugely powerful chief minister of France. Mazarin had built up a massive fortune, some of it through shady deals, including funds possibly embezzled from the English crown. The theory goes that Dogger, as a trusted servant, simply knew too much about these dirty financial secrets. He knew where the money was buried. As Sannino argues, Dogger was arrested at a politically sensitive time when Louis XIII was trying to secure an alliance with England. If a chatty valet revealed that France's former chief minister had robbed the English royal family, it could have blown up the entire deal. Dogger likely blabbed at the wrong time. He wasn't a threat to the throne because of his bloodline. He was a threat because of the dangerous political and financial secrets he knew. His identity had to be erased, not to hide a royal scandal, but to cover up a financial one. He was a loose end that couldn't be killed. Perhaps he had powerful connections that had to be silenced. This theory neatly explains both the extreme secrecy and the decent living conditions. The story of the man in the iron mask is a wild example of how history gets twisted into legend. The truth, as it often is way less romantic than the fiction we've been told. The prisoner almost certainly wasn't a king's brother, and his mask was velvet, not iron. He was most likely a valet named Eustache Dogger, a man whose biggest mistake was knowing a dangerous secret at the wrong time. He was a casualty of the brutal high-stakes politics of 17th century France. And yet, the legend lives on. Why? Because it taps into something deep in our collective psyche. It's a story about the ultimate loss of identity, about the terrifying power of the state to simply erase a person from existence. The mystery he left behind created a legend far more powerful and enduring than the simple unfortunate truth ever could be. If you enjoyed this trip into one of history's greatest mysteries, make sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the past, and drop a comment below. What historical mysteries should we tackle next? Thanks for watching.